The government once drew to it people who loved liberty. It now draws to it people who love power.
These people, and it's hard for decent moral people to get into the mindset of a politician, because basically they're sociopaths. They couldn't care in the slightest about you. Not even just what you want. They don't care if you suffer and die, as long as they have their power.
When they set their sights on you, they want to hurt you.
And that's when I realized America is not America. It's not the land that I was taught it was, because they can do whatever they wish to do, and there's nothing the citizen can do about it.
The largest criminal entity at large today is not some Colombian cocaine gang, it's the U.S. government. They're far more dangerous, and they have a legal monopoly to do anything they want with it.
Our government interferes with you more with every tick of the clock.
I think all governments are the same. They do not have much of a heart, sir.
The last thing we want is a government that can get things done. A government that can get things done, all they will get done is taking away freedoms. It's been shown over and over again.
It's always those people that believe you should deal with other people by force that are attracted to government, because the government is congealed force. I mean, as Mao said, the power of the state comes out of a barrel of a gun.
No man has the right to initiate physical force, violence, compulsion against other men. Men have certainly the right of self-defense, but no man, no group of men, that includes the government, has the right to initiate force.
When you learned don't hit and don't steal, it wasn't unless you work for the government. When you learned thou shalt not kill, it wasn't unless your dear leader gives you a gun and a uniform and a one-way ticket to the other side of the world. Government is force. An opinion with a gun.
Well, what is it about the government? Are they morally superior to us, that they can lie with impunity, lie with the law behind them, and if one of us would presume to do it to them, we could end up in jail? The government has institutionalized lying.
I mean, look at Obama and all the happy warmongering he's doing. Again, does anyone imagine he changed his mind, that he used to actually be pro-peace? And the people are like, we voted for you and we don't want this. He knows you don't want it. That's why when he was campaigning, he pretended to be anti-war.
I believe that our country, uniquely for the time, was founded on mistrust for the government, which is such a heavy and beautiful idea.
I will say this much. I cannot believe the government because they couldn't tell the truth about the air to breathe to people.
I have certain rules I live by. My first rule, I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing. Zero.
There aren't genuine politics. There's the media telling you Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney is like the epic clash of ideology, when we both know they're globalist neoliberals. I mean, they both exist to preserve, like, the interest of this relatively autonomous class of Goldman Sachs bankers.
They say if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, then he's got to get a fishing license, but he doesn't have any money. So he's going to get a job, and he has to get into the Social Security system and pay taxes. And now you're going to audit the poor cocksucker because he's not really good with math.
If there's a government, it will take your stuff. Every government in the history of the world has taken the stuff of the people it claimed to protect.
The state is an institution of theft writ large. Tax is just about a system where politicians and bureaucrats steal money from their citizens to squander in the most disgraceful manner. This place is no exception. Fascinatingly, and I really don't know how you manage to keep a straight face when you're talking about tax evasion, the whole Commission and the Commission bureaucracy avoid their taxes. You don't pay taxes like citizens pay taxes. You have all sorts of special deals. You are the biggest tax avoiders in Europe.
The Supreme Court has ruled that the IRS has no authority. The 16th Amendment did not give the IRS the authority to tax your labor and your wages.
The government is forcing Americans to participate in the world's biggest Ponzi scheme. I mean, so we need to be protected from government, not the other way around.
The banking system is fully corrupt and defrauding us.
They're trying to do things knowing it leads to disasters in the economy and people going bankrupt and losing their houses.
What you've done with this euro is you have trapped people in an economic prison.
What they've done is crash the economy in 2008 and done it on purpose, and then they started a massive, phenomenal, unprecedented transfer of wealth from the mass of the people to this elite through the banking system.
Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
They're going to create a total hardcore collapse level depression to reorganize society. Do you understand that?
What they've got to understand, these people now who are seriously rich, if you are not part of this network, they want your money too. So we're in this together. And if they divide and rule us by saying, well, it's not my problem, or it's not my problem, and then suddenly knock, 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 can I talk to you, sir? Well, it is your problem.
Guantanamo is used for laundering people to an offshore haven, which doesn't follow the rule of law. Similarly, Iraq and Afghanistan and Colombia are used to wash money out of the US tax base and back.
Arms companies.
Arms companies, yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is that money and money-making is at the center of modern war, and it's almost self-perpetuating.
Yes, and it's becoming worse.
I'm so sick of arming the world and then sending troops over to destroy the fucking arms. You know what I mean? We keep arming these little countries, then we go and blow the shit out of them.
I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office that says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran.
It's everybody. It's Ho Chi Minh. It's Mao Zedong. It's Manuel Noriega. It's Osama bin Laden. It's Saddam Hussein. It's the Shah. They build them up, they knock them down, and I watch them stick our troops in these meat grinders.
We became obsessed with capturing and killing human targets on lists, and on being suspicious of and avoiding cooperation with our host nation partners. I believe that if the general public, especially the American public, had access to the information contained within the Syrian and CDA tables, this could spark a domestic debate on the role of the military and our foreign policy in general, as well as related to Iraq and Afghanistan.
People don't like to be bombed. They don't like to be droned. They don't want their countries destroyed and their wedding parties blown up and little children out picking up firewood blown up by a drone.
You know, people's hatred of each other can be easily fueled. And that's what it's divide and conquer. And your neighbor, your brother becomes an enemy worse than the enemy that's actually pulling your strings, both of you, from far away.
This is not a map, it's a wish list. It's a wish list of countries in North Africa, the Middle East and the Near East, which they are picking off one after the other. Libya, now they're into Syria, they're starting trouble in Lebanon, they're in Iraq, they're in Afghanistan. Of course they want Iran. And what they're doing is they're finding different excuses to pick off different countries, because they have to find different excuses, or people might think that there's a pattern here.
Our government armed the Libyan al-Qaeda rebels out of Saudi Arabia, who first came from Saudi Arabia and other countries, into Benghazi 2 years ago to destabilize and take down Libya.
This is what Libya looked like in 2007. This is what the same street looks like in 2011. This is Libya. Hey, you are free.
I've been predicting for quite a while now that we were going to see boots on the ground in Syria before Iran.
Plans, rumors, and war propaganda for attacking Syria and disposing Assad has been around for many months. This past week, however, it was reported that the Pentagon indeed was finalizing plans to do just that. In my opinion, all the evidence to justify this attack is bogus. It is no more credible than the pretext given for the 2003 invasion of Iraq or for the 2011 attack on Libya.
12 years after 3,000 Americans were killed by al-Qaeda,
President Obama now asks us to be allies with al-Qaeda. Americans, by a large majority, want nothing to do with the Syrian civil war.
Also glad to grace the stage where Boris Johnson has just made light of the use of chemical weapons in Syria, meaning that GQ can now stand for genocide quips.
At the UN, an Israeli ambassador a year ago said that we should expect to see the the Syrian government gassing children in the future. And 1 year later, the smoke clears, and the same ambassador said, we want to make sure that those Syrian chemical weapon stockpiles don't end up in the hands of Hezbollah. So really, it's not about Syria's children. It's about the chemical weapons. It's about getting at them, because they don't want to have any country that has a deterrent, not, except for themselves. They want to control all the power, just like they do with the guns.
Chicago, Illinois has had some of the strictest gun control laws in America enacted for the past few years, and it is currently more than twice as likely for you to be killed in Chicago as in the Afghani war.
They're trying to disarm people, knowing that leads to higher crime rates.
If you look at cities like Chicago and Washington, D.C., which tried to ban guns altogether, they consistently have some of the highest crime rates, some of the highest murder rates in the entire country. Yeah. It doesn't work, because when you strip away the right to keep and bear arms of law-abiding citizens, the criminals keep their guns. Yep. You just disarm the populace.
I'd also like to point out that none of the guns used in the Chicago shootings were registered or licensed to the people who used them, thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them.
I was in the Philippines, physically, the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and made himself a dictator, and the first thing that dictator did, he gave the people of the Philippines 2 weeks to turn in all their guns, or it was the death penalty. Now, why would a dictator do that?
We also had gun registration. Oh, the Austrian people they all had guns. But the government said the guns are very dangerous, and we really have to have total control, safety. So we dutifully went to the police station and we registered our guns. Not long after, they said, no, it didn't help. The only way that we don't have accidents and crimes, you bring the guns to the police station, and then we don't have any crimes anymore and any accidents. And if you don't do that, capital punishment. So that's what we did.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns.
I don't need a document, and I don't need another man to explain to me that I have the right to defend my gift of life. And that there is an argument in America from Hillary Clinton, from Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, from a whole gaggle of numbnuts who would try to tell me they will dictate where, how, and if I can defend myself. I find that preposterous. I find it unacceptable, and I will not accept it. I am a free man. Don't tread on me.
There is a point of hypocrisy when it comes to gun control, that many of the proponents of gun control are very wealthy, live in communities where they can outsource police protection. But you have a lot of people that are worried about preserving the safety of their own home. If you're talking to a single woman living in Anacostia who has the misfortune to live next to a crack house, to tell her she doesn't have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms.
By signing this legislation, you are not signing away gun violence, but instead liberating American citizens of our constitutional rights. You are not eliminating guns from society, but eliminating our ability to protect our lives, liberty, and pursuits of happiness.
The guys who founded our country gave us the right to have guns, so the time came for the next revolution, we'd be armed and ready. And when people support gun control for their comfort or their peace of mind, they're forgetting that they're killing something there too. Gun control is bullshit.
The Second Amendment of our Bill of Rights is my concealed weapons permit. Period.
What if every woman were issued a gun? Who's going to rob or rape when there's a 50% chance that Janie's got a gun?
Thingiverse.com, which is kind of like known in the hobby or the maker community to be like this repository of community information for 3D printing, it decided to take unilateral action and just remove all these gun-related files. And, you know, it seems pretty clear it was a response to Sandy Hook. So look, without even judging what they're doing, it just is an act of censorship in my mind.
People talk about censorship as if it is somehow independent from surveillance. And one of the things that we need to remember is that censorship is a byproduct of almost all surveillance.
So who here has an iPhone? Who here has a BlackBerry? Who here uses Gmail? Well, you're all screwed. The reality is, intelligence contractors are selling right now to countries across the world mass surveillance systems for all those products.
The NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them.
Really, this is what our founding fathers fought the revolution over. At least one of the points is they objected to general warrants. These were warrants that didn't specify who was going to be searched, so the British soldiers could go from house to house. Now we're going from computer to computer, not of people who are suspected of being terrorists, of every American. They're going through 1 billion phone calls a day, and from your phone records, they can track your movements.
This state is a totalizing state. It wants to observe everything. It wants to know everything. It wants to write everything in the tables of power.
It's the spying on us without warrants that's illegal, that's done ubiquitously. Just because they have a computer to do it doesn't mean anything.
A child born today will grow up with no conception of privacy at all. They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves, an unrecorded, unanalyzed thought. And that's a problem, because privacy matters. Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be.
Because in fact, living without dignity, living without privacy, is a cancer in itself to society, which in itself also eats away at the human. When you live under that kind of surveillance, like total, absolute surveillance, where every time you pick up the phone, you know that it's being recorded, you say things differently. So as we sort of move into this nightmarish world, we have to decide if that's actually the world we want to live in.
People are being put on the watch list for criticizing the government, for engaging in anti-war protest. Their kids are being put on the watch list.
We're being spied on by our government. Duh. Who does not know that?
But to have an industrial scale surveillance system that's tracking my every activity and every transaction, every movement, and combining all this information together, that Stasi in East Germany would have drooled over this capability.
But I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
This originally started even before 9/11. They were soliciting this kind of information from the telecoms. The CEO of Quest testified that in court, or his court documents showed that he was approached in February of 2001 to provide customer data to the government so they could do analysis of calling communities and things like that. So to me, it seemed that that was an indication that the intent was to have a view inside the United States all along.
Because I've heard quite a lot of people that talk about post-privacy, and they talk about it in terms of feeling like, it's too late, right? We're done for. There's just like no possibility for privacy left anymore, and we just have to get used to it. And this is a pretty fascinating thing, because it seems to me that you never hear a feminist say that we're post-consent because there is rape, right? And why is that? The reason is because that's bullshit.
Surveillance and behavioral control, actually, have always been the economic basis of media. The commodity is not the media being delivered. So for instance, if you're talking about network television, the commodity in question is not the television show. The television show is just simply used to attract the real commodity, which is the audience. And the audience is not the customer, not the user in any kind of sense like in the market. The audience is actually what is being sold, and it's being sold to advertisers and lobby groups, what Smythe calls the consciousness industry, the industry that's interested in controlling your behavior.
The same people that control the politicians own the media. And so the media is not there, just like governments, to serve the interests and inform the people. It is there to tell the people what those who own the media want them to believe.
I understand everything he's saying.
No, it's because you're looking at him. When you don't see him and you don't see the lips.
I understand the whole thing.
Stop saying he. I'm present. Russell. What's wrong with your manners?
You're good.
Be polite. I'm coming in tomorrow with a big necklace and I'm opening.
Look beyond the superficial. That's the problem with current affairs. You forget about what's important. You allow the agenda to be decided by superficial information. What am I saying? What am I talking about? Don't think about what I'm wearing. These things are redundant.
I'm distracted.
Superficial.
I don't want that to be my country. I don't want that to be our legacy. I want my country back. I want it back.
Stand together, stand tall, tell the government you're mad as hell, no longer cooperate with the government, stop being a country run by the institutions for the institutions. Let's go back to we the people, by the people, for the people, as opposed to we the institution, by the institution, for the institution. Stand up for your individual rights. Stand up for the godliness that's in each and every one of us.
The worse things get, the more people start questioning the elaborate illusion painted for us by the propaganda, and therein lies the opportunity. It is time we make the freedom movement a threat to the establishment.
This is an era of confrontation between the disinherited, the oppressed, the former colonial possessions. This is an era when the empire strikes back.
There is truly a revolution of ideas. It's going to be a non-violent revolution, but we're going to stand up on principle, and we have an idea whose time has come, and nobody's going to stop it.
If people are empowered with information, if people are unified, if people have like a common understanding, are prepared to look at what we share, what unifies us instead of what separates us, then the people are invincible. This is the irrefutable truth of the elitist pyramid structures, is when the people are awake, it is impossible to maintain. This is why we need a police force, no disrespect officer, and a domestic army to control populations, because when the people decide this is over now, then it is over now, and we're close to this realisation.